Good evening. We begin with breaking news out of Roswell, Georgia. A cell phone video of a confrontation inside a neighborhood grocery store has been viewed millions of times online. Investigators say it started when a 67-year-old retired bus driver, a black man, asked a white shopper to move her cart. Good evening. We begin with breaking news out of Roswell, Georgia. Cell phone video from a neighborhood grocery store shows a confrontation between a 67-year-old retired bus driver and a 43-year-old woman that quickly turned violent, shocking everyone in the store. Why are you staring at me like that? You need to mind your own business, ma'am. I wasn't staring, I'm just waiting my turn, that's all. Don't you think you can get away with anything? Hey, let's calm down, please. We can sort this out. It happened on an ordinary Saturday morning in Roswell, Georgia, the kind of day when people just want to get groceries, pay, and go home. But that morning, something happened that no one in line at that local Publix would ever forget. "Excuse me," came a calm, steady voice from behind a shopping cart. It was Harold Benson, 67 years old, gray hair tucked neatly under a baseball cap, the kind of man everyone in the neighborhood waved to when he walked his dog. He'd been waiting patiently at the self-checkout, pushing his small cart of milk, bread, and fruit. Before he could even place his items on the counter, a woman stepped in front of him, blonde ponytail, designer sunglasses perched on her head, her voice sharp as a knife. "I was here first," she snapped, not even looking at him. Harold smiled politely. "Ma'am, I think the attendant waved me forward." That should have been it. A simple misunderstanding, but something about his calm, measured tone seemed to ignite a spark in her. "You people always think you can cut in," she hissed. The words landed heavy, shocking everyone nearby. A young mother gasped. The cashier froze mid-scan. Harold blinked, unsure he'd heard her right. "Excuse me." She stepped closer, eyes flashing. "You heard me. You people think rules don't apply to you." A few phones shot up, recording. Someone whispered, "She's losing it." Harold's heart thumped, not from fear, but from disbelief. He'd driven city buses for 35 years, handled shouting passengers, rude teens, even fights on his route, but never something like this. "I'm just trying to pay for my groceries," he said quietly. "Don't play the victim!" she spat, her voice rising. "You always do this, always acting like someone owes you respect." An older man nearby stepped forward. "Ma'am, please calm down." But Linda, that's what her name tag from work later revealed, didn't calm down. Instead, she shoved Harold's cart back. The wheel hit his shin. A can of soup toppled out, rolling under a shelf. The entire store went silent, except for the soft wail of a crying toddler in the next line. "Ma'am," said a store employee, approaching cautiously, "I need you to step back." She ignored him. "He cut in line and now you're defending him? Of course you are." Harold didn't move. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the fallen can. "You don't have to do this," he said softly. "It's not worth it." Her reply was a sneer. "Oh, so now you're the saint?" Without warning, she grabbed a can from her own cart and hurled it toward him. It missed, clattering loudly on the floor beside his foot. That was when the crowd reacted. "Whoa!" someone shouted. A man pulled out his phone, recording the chaos. Another woman stepped in front of Harold. "Enough! You're assaulting him!" The store manager rushed out from an office near the front. "Call the police," he said firmly. Harold stood still, stunned, trying to steady his breathing. He wasn't a man who liked attention. His wife had always told him, "Harold, you've got the patience of a preacher." And he did. Even now, he refused to yell back. "Sir, are you hurt?" the manager asked. "No, just tired," Harold murmured. The woman, Linda Carrington, 43, kept shouting even as others pulled her back. "You'll all see! This is ridiculous! He cut in line!" By now, the faint sound of approaching sirens echoed from outside. Someone had already uploaded the video to social media before the officers even arrived. When the police stepped in, Linda was still fuming. One officer gently took her arm. "Get your hands off me! He's the problem, not me!" "Ma'am," said the officer calmly, "you need to stop talking and cooperate." She tried to twist free, but two more officers stepped in. "You're under arrest for assault and disorderly conduct," one said as the cuffs clicked into place. The crowd clapped, not loudly, but enough for Harold to hear the quiet wave of approval washing over him. He didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He just exhaled, shoulders sinking with relief and sadness all at once. As they led Linda outside, she kept shouting, "I didn't do anything wrong. He provoked me." The cameras followed her every step. The story was already spreading. A storm was brewing, and neither of them knew how far it would go. Harold rubbed his chin, looked down at his cart, and finally whispered to the manager, "Can I just pay and go home?" "Of course, sir," the manager said softly. "We're all so sorry this happened." As Harold walked toward the exit, people stepped aside, murmuring quiet words of support. He gave a small nod of thanks, though his eyes looked distant, as if trying to make sense of a world that still hadn't learned. Outside, the flashing lights faded as the patrol car pulled away. Harold stood by his car for a moment, hands on the cart handle, just breathing. He didn't feel victorious, just tired. Tired of moments like these that still had to happen. But as the video made its way online, what happened next would take everything to a level no one expected. The store was still humming with disbelief when the officers led Linda Carrington out. The echo of her shouts faded down the aisle, replaced by the low murmur of people trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. Some were angry, some were shaking, but everyone felt the same thing, a deep, shared shock that something so ugly could erupt over a grocery line. Harold Benson stood quietly beside the checkout, his hand resting on the cart handle. The store manager, a man named Dean Ortega, approached with careful steps. "Sir, do you want to sit down for a moment? We've got a bench in the office." Harold shook his head. "No, I'll be all right. I just didn't expect all that." Dean gave a sympathetic nod. "You handled yourself well, Mr. Benson. Better than most would have." Harold gave a faint smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. After driving a bus in this city for 30 years, you learn not to lose your cool. But it still stings, you know? A young cashier nearby, maybe 19, whispered to a coworker, "Did you see her face when the cops walked in?" The other replied, "Yeah." She didn't even look scared, just angry. People kept whispering, phones out, replaying the video they had just recorded. In some clips, Harold looked like a man standing against a storm. In others, the focus was on Linda's rage. The words, the throw, the moment she was handcuffed. Every detail captured in full color, every frame etched in memory. Harold finally pushed his cart forward, still wanting to finish what he came for. Dean insisted, "Please, sir, it's on the house. You've been through enough." "I appreciate that," Harold said, "but I'll pay. I don't want this to turn into something it's not." The manager didn't argue. He just helped bag the items himself, quietly, respectfully. As Harold left the store, a woman in her 50s approached him near the automatic doors. "Sir, I just want to say, what she did was wrong. You didn't deserve that." He nodded softly. "Thank you, ma'am. I just hope she learned something from it." The woman's eyes glistened. "We all should." Outside, the Georgia sun was bright, almost too bright. Harold placed his bags in the trunk, then leaned against the car door for a moment, trying to slow his breathing. His phone buzzed. A text from his granddaughter, Camille. "Grandpa, are you okay? I saw something on Twitter. Is that you in the video?" He stared at the screen, the words spinning in his mind. "Lord have mercy," he muttered under his breath. Across town, the same video was spreading like wildfire. Within an hour, it had been reposted thousands of times. News outlets picked it up, headlines flashing, "Woman throws senior black man during racist rant in Georgia grocery store." Camille's phone was blowing up with messages from friends. She worked as a nurse at a local clinic, and everyone there was talking about it. She called Harold immediately. "Grandpa, please tell me you're okay." "I'm fine, baby," he said, voice low but steady. "Didn't get hit. Just surprised, that's all." "Do you want me to come over?" No. Don't drive all the way out here. I just need to rest." Camille hesitated. "They're saying her name's Linda Carrington. People are posting where she works." "It's getting big, Grandpa." He sighed. "Yeah, I figured it might. But you know what, Camille? I don't want to add to the noise. I just want people to remember to stay kind, even when others don't." His words sounded calm, but inside, something was twisting. For all his years of patience, it hurt to know that, at his age, after decades of honest work, he could still be reduced to someone's stereotype in a split second. Back at the store, police were taking witness statements. Dean gave his account, describing Linda's aggression and the can she threw. A teenage boy who recorded the video showed officers the footage directly from his phone. "She kept yelling," he said, "and everyone told her to stop. He didn't do anything." The officer nodded. "This will help a lot. Thank you for coming forward." Meanwhile, outside in the parking lot, another officer spoke quietly with Harold before letting him go home. "Sir, if you need to file a report or press charges, you can contact us anytime. But we've already charged her with assault and a hate crime enhancement." Harold rubbed the back of his neck. "That's a lot to take in. I just wanted to stop." "I understand," said the officer. "But people like you make a difference. When you stay calm like that, you set an example." That night, Harold sat in his small living room, the evening news playing softly in the background. His wife's photograph sat framed beside the television, her smile steady and kind. "You'd tell me to let it go," he whispered to her picture. "But how many times do we have to keep letting it go?" He switched the channel, but it didn't matter. The story was everywhere. The video, the arrest, the hashtags. His name wasn't in the reports yet, but people were already calling him the man from aisle 7. He chuckled bitterly. All those years driving people home, and now he's famous for buying milk. Camille called again before bed. "Grandpa, promise me you won't read the comments online." "I won't," he said, even though he already had. The comments were a mix of outrage and ignorance, some defending him, others trying to justify Linda's behavior. But what struck him most were the strangers who wrote, "That could have been my grandfather." Harold turned off the TV, stood by the window, and looked out at the quiet street. He felt the weight of it, not just what happened to him, but what it meant. Somewhere out there, people were learning, talking, changing. Maybe not enough, but it was a start. But as the video gained millions of views overnight, the story stopped being just about him and started becoming something much bigger. By sunrise the next morning, Harold Benson's quiet neighborhood in Roswell had no idea that one of its residents had become the center of a national storm. The video of the grocery store incident had gone viral. Millions of views, hundreds of thousands of shares, and endless arguments in the comments. On Twitter, people demanded justice. On Facebook, debates flared between friends and family members. And on TikTok, teenagers were reenacting the scene, mouthing the words she screamed, "Linda Carrington." One post read, "The woman who threw a can at a 67-year-old man for standing in line." Her photo, pulled from her company's website, was plastered across every social feed. The internet had decided she was the face of hate for the week. Harold, however, had no interest in fame. He was sitting in his recliner, phone buzzing nonstop, trying to drink his morning coffee in peace. "Grandpa," said Camille, who had driven over early, "you're trending on Twitter. I'm serious. You're everywhere." He groaned softly. "That's not something I ever wanted to hear." Camille showed him the screen. There he was, frozen mid-sentence, calm and quiet, while Linda's face twisted in anger across from him. The video had been slowed down, captioned, analyzed, and turned into 1,000 memes. One clip had even been paired with gospel music. Text reading, "Grace under pressure." "She's already been fired," Camille added. "Her company made a statement this morning. They said they don't tolerate discrimination." Harold stared at the screen for a long moment. "I didn't want that for her. She threw a can at you." "Grandpa," Camille said, exasperated, "you could have been hurt. Don't feel sorry for her." "I don't feel sorry," he said quietly. "I just don't like seeing anybody torn apart like that, even if they earned it." Across town, Linda sat in her small apartment, blinds drawn, phone ringing non-stop. Her mother had left 3 voicemails. Her boss had called twice before emailing her termination letter. The words, "Your behavior violates company policy," hit harder than she expected. She tossed her phone onto the couch and muttered, "They don't even know the full story." But deep down, she knew there was no story that could excuse what she'd said. The video didn't lie. Every word, every gesture, it was all there, replayed 1,000,000 times. Her doorbell rang. When she looked through the peephole, 2 reporters stood outside with microphones. She didn't answer. They left business cards instead, sliding them under the door. Meanwhile, Harold's phone kept ringing too. Not just from family, but from reporters, local news anchors, and strangers who wanted to thank him. One call came from Channel 5 Atlanta. "Mr. Benson, this is Claire Morales from Waga TV. We'd love to interview you about what happened. You've inspired a lot of people." He hesitated. "I'm not looking to inspire anyone. I just want to be left alone." Claire's tone softened. "I understand, but your story is giving people hope. You showed restraint when you didn't have to. That matters." Harold paused, rubbing the back of his neck. "Hope's a funny thing, ma'am. People find it in moments they shouldn't have to." That night, Camille scrolled through her feed, watching the comments pour in. "Look at this one," she said, showing him a post. "If more people handled hate like Mr. Benson, the world would be a better place." He smiled faintly. "That's kind, but they don't know me. I just didn't want to give her more to yell about." "You did the right thing," Camille insisted. "Everyone can see that." But Harold wasn't so sure. He couldn't stop thinking about how quickly it had all escalated, how a moment of rudeness had turned into something ugly enough to define 2 people's lives overnight. Later that evening, a news van parked outside his street. A reporter knocked on his door, microphone in hand. "Mr. Benson, can we ask how you feel about the arrest?" He opened the door just a crack. "Ma'am, I've got nothing more to say than what's already in that video." She nodded, respecting his quiet refusal, and left. Inside, Camille said softly, "You know, Grandpa, you could use this to speak up. People are listening." He leaned back in his chair. "Maybe someday, but right now I'm just tired of hearing my name attached to something ugly." Meanwhile, Linda's story was spinning out of her control. Her social media accounts were flooded with threats and insults. Strangers called her job, her church, even her neighbors. She'd lost everything in less than 48 hours. Her sister Megan came by with groceries and found her crying at the kitchen table. "You messed up, Lynn. You really messed up." "I know," Linda whispered. "But does one mistake have to end my life?" Megan sighed. "It's not just one mistake, it's what you said, how you said it. You've got to take responsibility." Linda buried her face in her hands. "I can't even go outside. They're calling me a monster." Megan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then prove you're not. Start by apologizing, not online, not through some lawyer. Face him." The next morning, Linda's attorney called to tell her she'd been officially charged. She listened silently as he read the charges: assault, public disturbance, and hate crime enhancement. "Do you have anything to say?" he asked. Linda took a deep breath. "Yeah, I deserve what's coming." While her world fell apart, Harold tried to move on. But every store visit, every walk in the park came with whispers and recognition. People thanked him, hugged him, called him brave. Yet every time they did, he felt the same ache in his chest. He didn't feel brave. He felt tired of being reminded that something as simple as standing in line could turn into a national story. But soon, neither Harold nor Linda could avoid what was next, the reckoning that would bring them face to face again. The air outside the Fulton County Courthouse felt heavy that morning. News vans lined the curb, satellite dishes pointed skyward, reporters rehearsing lines under bright lights. Inside, the halls echoed with footsteps and hushed voices. Everyone seemed to know what case was on the docket: State of Georgia versus Linda Carrington. Harold Benson walked through the double doors wearing his best gray suit. It wasn't new, but it was pressed and clean, the same one he'd worn to his granddaughter's graduation. Camille walked beside him, clutching her purse tightly. "You don't have to do this, Grandpa," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I know, but if I don't show up, what kind of example would that set?" Cameras flashed the moment they stepped into the hallway. A reporter called out, "Mr. Benson, how do you feel about seeing her again?" He didn't stop walking. "I'm here to let the law do what it's supposed to do," he said calmly. Across the hall, Linda Carrington sat on a bench, staring down at her folded hands. The week had carved deep lines into her face. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair tied back. Her lawyer, Samuel Duran, leaned in and whispered something. She didn't seem to hear. When she finally looked up, her eyes met Harold's from across the room. For a second, both froze. Then she looked away, guilt washing over her like a wave. Inside the courtroom, Judge Margaret Ellis presided with quiet authority. The atmosphere was tense but restrained. Rows of spectators filled the benches, journalists, locals, even a few people from Harold's neighborhood who had come to show support. "Court is now in session," the bailiff announced. The prosecutor began by playing the video, the same one millions had already seen online. The sound of Linda A.'s voice shouting echoed through the courtroom. "You people always think you can cut in. It was like watching a wound reopen." Linda flinched, tears welling in her eyes. Harold looked down, jaw tight but calm. When the video ended, the prosecutor turned to the judge. "Your Honor, this case is not about a misunderstanding in a grocery store. It's about public hate, targeted aggression, and the humiliation of an innocent man." Samuel Duran rose next, the judge said. "Your Honor, Miss Carrington has already faced public backlash beyond what any court could deliver. She lost her job, her reputation, and received hundreds of threats. She acknowledges what she did was wrong and deeply regrets her words and actions. We're asking for leniency, for the chance to make amends." Judge Ellis nodded. "We'll hear from the victim now." The room fell silent. Harold rose slowly and made his way to the stand. Camille squeezed his hand as he passed. He took a deep breath. "Your Honor," he began softly, "I've seen a lot in my life. I've seen kindness and I've seen cruelty. But that day at the grocery store, it wasn't just about one woman losing her temper. It was about what still lives in people's hearts when they think no one is watching." He paused, glancing toward Linda, who sat frozen. "I don't hate her. I never did. I just want her, and everyone watching, to understand that words like that cut deep. They don't fade. And when you throw something at a person because of who they are, you're throwing away your own humanity too." The room stayed silent for several seconds after he finished. Even Judge Ellis seemed moved. "Thank you, Mr. Benson. You may step down." As he returned to his seat, Linda's lawyer whispered to her, "Would you like to speak?" Linda hesitated, then rose. "Your Honor, I don't expect forgiveness. What I did was cruel, and I wish I could take it back. But I can't. I grew up in a house where people said things like that all the time, and I never questioned it, until now. I know that's not an excuse. I just want to do better." Her voice cracked, trembling under the weight of her own words. Judge Ellis leaned forward slightly. "Miss Carrington, remorse is important, but accountability matters more. Hate cannot be explained away by upbringing or frustration. It is a choice, and the consequences of that choice are what this court must decide today." She picked up the file in front of her. "This court sentences Miss Carrington to a $5,000 fine, 1 year of probation, mandatory racial sensitivity training, and 200 hours of community service at the Roswell Senior Center." A quiet murmur rippled through the room. Harold exhaled slowly. It wasn't revenge, it was responsibility, and that was enough for him. Linda nodded faintly, eyes red. "Thank you, Your Honor." As the bailiff called for adjournment, Harold gathered his coat. Reporters swarmed again, firing questions. "Mr. Benson, are you satisfied with the outcome? Do you forgive her?" He stopped at the courthouse steps and turned toward the microphones. "Forgiveness isn't a headline," he said. "It's something you work on, one day at a time. I hope she uses her time to learn, not just about other people, but about herself." Then he walked away, leaving the cameras behind. Camille followed, proud but worried. "Grandpa, you okay?" He smiled gently. "Yeah, for the first time in a while, I think I might be." Back inside, Linda sat alone on the bench, wiping her eyes. She didn't know how she would face the next few months. The humiliation, the whispers, the work at that senior center, but somewhere deep inside, a part of her knew this was the only way forward. Life has a way of forcing people to face what they've broken, and soon their paths would cross again in a place neither expected. 2 weeks after the sentencing, the news coverage had faded from national headlines. But in Roswell, the story was still alive. Every time someone at the diner mentioned the incident, people knew exactly what they were talking about. Harold Benson had become a quiet local hero, the man who kept his dignity when someone else lost theirs. But Harold didn't feel like a hero. He spent his mornings reading the newspaper at Piedmont Park Cafe, where the waitress Darla always refilled his coffee without asking. "You holding up okay, Mr. Benson?" she asked one morning, sliding him a plate of scrambled eggs. He smiled faintly, trying to. "It's strange, being recognized for something you wish never happened." She nodded. "You handled it better than most would have. Folks still talk about that speech you gave in court." Harold shook his head. "That wasn't a speech, Darla. It was just the truth." Across town, Linda Carrington was serving the first week of her court-ordered community service. The Roswell Senior Center smelled faintly of coffee and furniture polish. The walls were lined with framed photos of retirees at dance nights and charity luncheons. She signed in at the front desk, avoiding eye contact with the receptionist. Her volunteer supervisor, Janet Morales, handed her a stack of towels. "Laundry room's down the hall. Just fold and stack for now." "Yes, ma'am," Linda said quietly. Every glance felt like judgment. Every whispered conversation sounded like her name. She kept her head down, folding towel after towel, trying not to think about how her life had shrunk to this unpaid service, public shame, and a face people recognized for all the wrong reasons. That afternoon, while sweeping the dining area, she overheard 2 elderly men talking near the TV. "Isn't that the woman from the video?" one asked. "Sure looks like her," said the other. "I saw her throw that can. Unbelievable." Her grip on the broom tightened. She wanted to disappear. Meanwhile, Harold's granddaughter Camille was doing everything she could to shield him from social media. "People are still arguing about you, Grandpa," she said one evening. "Some folks think you should have pressed for a harsher sentence." He chuckled softly. "If I wanted to punish her, I'd have let her keep living like she did before, full of anger and excuses. This way maybe she'll learn something real." Camille tilted her head. "You really think people can change like that?" He looked out the window at the setting sun. "I've seen worse hearts soften, so yeah, I think it's possible." At the senior center, Linda's second week brought something she didn't expect: small talk. One of the residents, Mr. Langford, a retired carpenter with a slow, warm drawl, waved her over. "Hey, aren't you the lady they keep talking about on the news?" Her stomach twisted. "Yes, sir. That was me." He nodded, chewing thoughtfully on a mint candy. "You said some nasty things, didn't you?" "I did," she admitted. "Did you learn anything from it?" She hesitated, then said, "I don't want to be that person again." He smiled faintly. "Then keep showing up. We all mess up. Some of us just do it in front of more cameras than others." For the first time in weeks, Linda felt a flicker of something unfamiliar: gratitude. A few days later, as she walked through the main hall carrying boxes of donated books, she froze. Sitting near the window, sipping tea and chatting with a group of residents, was Harold Benson? Her chest tightened. "Oh no," she whispered under her breath. Janet noticed her hesitation. "That's Mr. Benson. He volunteers here on Fridays. You okay?" Linda nodded slowly, gripping the box. I'll manage." When Harold turned his head and saw her, his expression didn't change. No anger, no smirk, just recognition. He excused himself from the table and walked over. "Miss Carrington," he said quietly. "Didn't expect to see you here." Linda swallowed hard. "Neither did I. The court thought it would be good for me to spend time helping people I once disrespected." He studied her for a moment. "And how's that going?" She looked down. "Harder than I thought, but maybe that's the point." He nodded. "It usually is." They stood in silence for a few seconds, just two people bound by one moment neither could undo. Then Harold said softly, "You know, I come here to talk to the old folks, tell them stories from the bus route. Some of them still believe the world's kinder than it looks. I try not to ruin that." Linda managed a faint smile. "Maybe I could learn from them too." "I think you already are," he said. "Just keep showing up." When he walked away, she stood there, frozen, unsure whether to cry or breathe. It wasn't forgiveness he'd given her, not yet, but it was something close, something she hadn't expected to feel again: respect. Later that day, Harold sat in his car outside the senior center, watching her through the windshield as she swept the steps. He didn't pity her. He just wondered how many people carried anger like hers, waiting for someone or something to expose it. He thought about his wife again, the way she used to say, "You can't fight darkness with more darkness. Harold, you just keep being light," he whispered to himself, trying. Honey, still trying. The next morning, when Harold went for his usual walk, a young man jogging by slowed. "Hey, sir, I saw your story online. Thanks for handling that the way you did. You made people think." Harold nodded politely. "That's all I ever hoped for." He kept walking, feeling the cool air on his face for the first time in weeks. It felt easier to breathe, but forgiveness is never a straight line. The moment they met again at that senior center would set off a quiet change in both of them that neither could predict. The senior center had a rhythm of its own: soft piano music in the mornings, dominoes clicking in the afternoons, laughter spilling from the art room when someone told an old joke for the 100th time. It was a place meant for peace. But for Linda Carrington, every visit still carried a quiet weight. Every towel folded, every floor swept was another reminder of the moment she tried to erase but couldn't T. It had been 3 weeks since she first saw Harold Benson there. Since then, they'd crossed paths a few times. Polite hellos, short nods, small talk about the weather. But underneath those brief exchanges lived something unspoken. Harold saw a woman wrestling with her guilt. Linda saw a man who had every reason to hate her but didn't. That morning, the air was cooler than usual. The sky hung low and gray, and the smell of rain seeped in through the doors. Linda arrived early, hoping to avoid him. But as fate would have it, Harold was already there, sitting with a few seniors, helping them fill out forms for a new wellness program. When he noticed her at the door, he gave a small nod. She almost turned around, but instead took a breath and walked toward him. "Mr. Benson," she said quietly, stopping near his table. "Could I talk to you for a minute?" He looked up from the paperwork and gestured toward the hallway. "Sure." They stepped outside into the covered courtyard, the sound of light rain tapping on the roof above. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then Linda said, "I've wanted to say this for a while. I'm sorry. Not just for what I said, but for what I thought that day in the store. I let everything ugly in me come out, and you didn't deserve any of it." Harold studied her face for a long moment. She wasn't defensive now. There was no anger, no excuse, just exhaustion and truth. "I appreciate you saying that," he finally replied. "Most people would have just moved on and pretended it didn't happen." "I tried," she admitted. "But it follows me everywhere. I lost my job. My friends won't return my calls. My family barely talks to me. I guess I am learning what it feels like to be judged by something you can change." He tilted his head slightly. "That's a lesson a lot of us learned a long time ago." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I know. And I'm sorry it took me hurting someone to understand that." They stood in silence again, the rain growing heavier for a moment. Harold thought about his late wife, how she used to believe that some people only wake up when life knocks them down hard enough. Maybe that's what was happening here. "I can't tell you everything's fine," Harold said finally. "It's not," she admitted, "but I believe people can change if they mean it. So, just keep trying." Linda looked down at her hands, trembling slightly. "Thank you," she whispered. After that conversation, something shifted between them. They didn't become friends overnight, but the tension faded. Harold started greeting her with genuine warmth, and Linda began volunteering beyond her required hours. She brought snacks for the residents, organized bingo nights, even sat with one of the widows who struggled to eat alone. One afternoon, Harold found her in the kitchen helping Mr. Langford make coffee. The two were laughing as she tried, and failed, to operate the old percolator. "You're burning it again," Langford said, shaking his head. Linda laughed. "At this point, I think the smell's part of the charm." Harold watched from the doorway, smiling faintly. Later, as she wiped down tables, he approached her. "You seem different," he said. Linda set the rag aside. "I feel different. I used to walk in here feeling like everyone saw a monster. Now I just feel like a person again." He nodded. "That fits what happens when you show people who you really are instead of who you used to be." Her eyes softened. "I owe that to you. You could have ruined my life. You could have stood outside that courthouse and told the world what a terrible person I am. But you didn't, T." "I didn't have to," Harold said gently. "You already knew." For the first time since the trial, they both laughed. It wasn't nervous. It was real. As weeks passed, word spread that Linda wasn't the same woman from the viral video. The seniors defended her when new volunteers whispered. The staff noticed the change, too. She was learning, not from a lecture or a punishment, but from time spent among the people she once looked down on. One afternoon, the senior center held a small appreciation lunch for volunteers. Harold and Linda sat at the same table, surrounded by chatter and clinking dishes. Janet Morales stood at the front, thanking everyone for their service. When she mentioned Harold and Linda by name, the room broke into applause. Linda blushed, whispering, "I don't deserve that." Harold leaned toward her. "Maybe not yet, but keep showing up. That's how you earn it." When the event ended, they stepped outside together. The rain had stopped, and the sun peeked through the clouds, painting the pavement gold. Linda looked out at the parking lot and said softly, "You know, I used to think forgiveness was something people gave you, but I'm starting to think it is something you have to build, one small action at a time." Harold smiled. "You're learning faster than most." He started toward his car, then turned back. "Ever think about speaking to others about this? Telling them what you've learned?" She hesitated. "You think anyone would listen to me?" He nodded. "They'll listen if you're honest. People always do." As she watched him walk away, she realized that maybe forgiveness wasn't just about being forgiven. It was about becoming someone worthy of it. But Linda's story, and Harold's too, wasn't finished. What came next would turn their quiet understanding into something much larger than either expected. 6 months later, the viral video that once defined both their lives had been buried under the internet's next scandals and trends. But in Roswell, people hadn't forgotten. The grocery store had replaced the damaged floor tiles in aisle 7, yet that spot still carried a quiet story. A story about a moment that changed two strangers forever. Harold Benson sat on the porch of his small brick house, sipping coffee as the morning sun stretched across his yard. The hum of cicadas carried through the air. It was peaceful again, just the way he liked it, but something in him had shifted. He no longer saw the world as a collection of strangers, but as a fragile web of moments where kindness could make or break someone's day. A familiar voice called from the sidewalk. "Morning, Mr. Benson." It was Linda Carrington carrying a box of canned goods. She'd started organizing food drives through the senior center, not because the court ordered her to, but because she wanted to. Harold smiled, waving her up the path. "You don't stop helping, do you?" She grinned. "Keeps me busy. Plus, it feels good to do something right for once." He chuckled. "Well, the folks at the center won't let you quit now. They'd miss you." She set the box down on his porch and sat across from him. "You know, I've been thinking about that day. The store, the things I said. I used to replay it in my head to punish myself. Now I replay it to remind myself who I don't want to be. Ever again." Harold nodded slowly. "That's how growth works. Pain first, then purpose." She looked at him for a long moment. "You forgave me before I ever asked. I still don't understand why." He smiled faintly. "Because if I didn't, it would have eaten me alive. I've seen what bitterness does to people. It turns them mean without them even noticing." Linda leaned back, taking in his words. "You think people can really change?" "I think they can start," Harold said, "and sometimes that's enough." They sat in silence for a while, watching a neighbor's kid ride his bike down the street. A breeze rustled the leaves, and for a moment, the world felt ordinary again. Later that afternoon, they headed together to the senior center for a local TV interview. A small Atlanta station had reached out, wanting to do a segment on restorative justice in action. Harold wasn't thrilled about the attention, but he agreed, mostly because Linda asked him to stand with her. Inside the center, the crew set up near the common room. Janet Morales stood by, smiling proudly. "You two ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be," Harold said, adjusting his tie. Linda laughed nervously. "If I start crying on camera, I'm blaming you." The reporter, Stephanie Quinn, began the interview with warmth in her voice. "Mr. Benson, Miss Carrington, your story has touched a lot of people. What do you hope others take away from it?" Harold looked into the camera. "That anger never fixes anything, that you can stand firm without hating back, and that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength." Stephanie turned to Linda. "And you, Miss Carrington?" Linda took a breath. "I want people to know that admitting you're wrong doesn't destroy you. Pretending you're right does. I hurt someone because I thought my frustration gave me the right to. It didn't. I used to think racism lived in other people, not me. Turns out, it was sitting right under my own skin, waiting for an excuse to come out. But I'm changing that every day." The room was quiet. Even the camera operator lowered their head for a moment. After the interview, Stephanie shook their hands. You've both given people something real, not just a story, a lesson. When they left the building, Harold and Linda walked side by side, the sun shining on their path, the quiet bond between them stronger than ever. Harold and Linda walked side by side across the parking lot. She turned to him and said, "You know, I used to think this story would follow me forever. Now, I hope it does, but for the right reasons." He smiled. "That's how you know you've changed." Weeks later, the segment aired across local stations. Viewers sent letters thanking them for reminding people that forgiveness and growth still mattered. One letter came from a retired teacher who wrote, "Your story helped me talk to my students about prejudice. They saw it as real, not just history." Harold read that letter twice before folding it carefully into a drawer beside his wife's photo. "You'd be proud of this one, honey," he whispered. Meanwhile, Linda kept volunteering. Even after her sentence ended, she started mentoring new volunteers, especially those who came in with attitudes like hers once had. "You can't fix yesterday," she'd tell them, "but you can use it to make tomorrow better." Months passed, and though they didn't see each other every day, their paths still crossed. A wave in the grocery aisle, a coffee shared after church, a short laugh over old memories. In one of their last conversations before Harold's move to be closer to Camille, he told her, "You know what I realized, Linda? Hate's contagious, but so is grace. You gave me a reason to keep believing people can do better." She smiled through tears. "And you gave me a second chance to prove it." They hugged quietly. No words were needed. When Harold drove away that afternoon, the reflection of the setting sun glimmered on his windshield. He felt peace, not the kind that comes from forgetting, but from forgiving. That viral video, that chaotic day, had started as something ugly, but somewhere between the pain and the headlines, it became something more, a reminder that humanity still has a heartbeat, even in its messiest moments. As Harold often said later when asked about it, "We all end up in someone's aisle 7 sooner or later. What matters is what we do next." If this story moved you, take a moment to share it, to talk about it, and to remember that real change begins with how we treat each other. Don't forget to subscribe to Fate Tales for more stories that remind us who we are and who we still can be.